Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Conveyor Cast. Today we have here Brian from Pistachio, and excited to chat with him about a little bit of Web3, a little bit about testing the waters and jumping into entrepreneurship, working in finance, and being a remote worker too. So welcome aboard, Brian.
Thank you so much, Quinn, for having me. Really appreciate it.
So tell me a little bit about Pistachio. Give me a bit of background on that. I know that you were saying you're pre-launch. So what are your major preoccupations the next quarter here?
Yeah, so a really high-level overview of what Pistachio is that we're here to protect your knot. We are the easiest and safest way to grow your wealth. And really the purpose of the application is to take the massive cognitive overhead that is involved with crypto and to simplify it, right? Everyone always wants to say that they're bringing on the next billion users, and the reality is the next billion users have no idea what we're doing. They don't understand it. It's way too complicated. Everyone wants in DeFi, all the new DeFi applications really just kind of market to this niche bubble of crypto Twitter in order to get their same, and they fight over clients, right? But the reality is that the technology of blockchain, and especially Ethereum, has so much potential to revolutionize finance and personal finance and how we kind of look at banking. And so we wanted to create an application that was non-custodial, right? So essentially you are your own bank. And then empower users to not only be their own bank, but to grow their wealth in a sustainable way, and then also to be able to spend it, right? Very, very, very easily, because people think a big kind of critique in the past was, well, if crypto is supposed to be money, how do I spend it, right? And now there's a lot of polished rails that allow people to basically have a self-custody debit or credit card and be able to spend their crypto easily. And so the second part of the question, right? What are our preoccupations, I guess, for the quarter and the next coming months? So we're currently being evaluated for the iOS App Store, which is awesome, right? It's just when people say it's daunting, it's not necessarily like troublesome. It's just time consuming, right? It's going back and forth and, okay, now we need this. Okay, we fix it, we send it back. Now we need this. We fix it, we send it back, right? And so it's just time consuming in that way. And I'm not really concerned about being approved, where I think in the past crypto applications had this sort of a regulatory hurdle to worry about. We've clearly delineated our custody solution from how we on-ramp currencies from, in the exchange from fiat to crypto, in which we don't handle. And so we actually, we just have to explain that relationship and we get through. And then so the next few months is just about users, right? Getting users, getting people onto Pistachio, getting them to talk about Pistachio, use Pistachio, and then me talking with them to understand, okay, now that you've used the app, what do you love? What do you hate? Why would you come back? How we can improve it? What's broken? What's wrong? And on a very just constant basis, right? Constantly talking to our users. But luckily, we've built up a wait list of now 8,000 IP verified non-fraudulent individuals, which we've accumulated over the last year and a half. And so we have basically a two-part go-to-market system. One is just drip campaign to the people who have already been waiting, who waiting for a while to get in, use Pistachio. And then we're going to have a more hyper localized approach here in Mexico, where we're going to be a mixture of advertising, paid, organic, and it's a large strategy, but basically hyper localizing here in Mexico.
I think Mexico is an excellent place for a self-custodying wallet because of the fact that it's a emerging market. And so there's folks that want to protect and know a lot about digital assets from let's say an established, investing perspective. But there's also folks who are probably wanting alternatives to saving in US dollars. And so the idea of emerging markets or folks who are in a lot of the wallet and even stablecoin killer app features that I'm seeing are not necessarily in Mexico, but they are in emerging and developing markets. So places like Africa, Latin America, where there's hyperinflation, and they aren't they're using digital currencies as a lifeline to protect their wealth, protect what they've earned, rather than doing it as a alternative asset as a portion of their earnings. But that's so for the audience, we're here talking about executive communications. I have my marketing agency. I help subject matter experts, founders cast their vision, produce demand, create demand with their expertise. But a large reason why I started the agency is because I started in cryptocurrencies in like 2016. And I was living in that online world of Telegram groups, Reddit, Twitter, and it's wild how much that has been adopted by the world at large. I knew it was going to be a huge trend. I knew that small group chats and communities in places like Telegram were where you got early signs, you got early ideas, you found alpha if you're investing, you found opportunities. But it truly has become, I think the biggest thing was the Wall Street Bets. Like Wall Street Bets is one of the first places that people fully understood, let's say, in the mass media, that small communities through digital tools, digital communication software became an important source of gathering, of people coming together. And it sounds like you've come a little bit later to that party. What do you think about sort of online communities, Web3 blending with the traditional finance, but also just traditional consumer media world?
Yeah, I think we see it's definitely, we see a lot more applications like around that sort of niche, right? Like creating and monetizing your own individual communities. I know there was an application called Friend Tech that tried to do that in crypto last year, although that had a long myriad of reasons why it was terrible and crashed and burned in the end. And now, I even saw an application today. I forgot the name of it, but it's a lot of like group chats in which you can basically fund something together and sort of create investment groups from within your friends, right? It's like somebody makes money and it's like, why didn't you tell me, and it's like, we'll just put some money in the group and we'll all do this together. There's definitely value in crowdsourcing alpha, especially from your friends, and especially if like you get rich together with your friends. I think there's a lot of value in there. We are taking a less siloed approach, a more siloed approach, rather, a less social approach. I think there's a fine balance to be walked when it comes to socialization in finance, right? I think that it's it's fun to invest with your friends, but at the same time, finance has traditionally been something that's very private to people, right? Like you'll share your investment opportunities. Hey, I've done a lot of research in this, and I really think it's a long play, right? But there's this element of like, I'm not going out and sharing my Schwab portfolio with my friends, right, that I rebalance. It's a very personal activity. And so I sort of take this with our app as well. And so we've tried to create this nice balance between financial applications like whether it's like your bank, whether it be JP Morgan or a more neobank or like Revolut, something like Venmo, right? That does have the peer-to-peer aspect of it, but then also has additional social features like a social wall, right? To see who's paying who. Personally, I don't like that, right? Like that was when they implemented that. That was one of the biggest. I'm like, ooh, no. Let me turn on my transactions. I'm private. Like if I'm paying someone, I don't need the world to know. I remember it too, because one of my friends was like, yeah, I get bored looking at Instagram and Twitter, and so I scroll through Venmo feeds, and that blew my mind. I'm like, what? Like you casually scroll through Venmo feeds to see who people are paying each other? And I was like, okay, private first immediately. And then I took that sort of same ethos with me when we built Pistachio, because one of the features of Pistachio, or one of the benefits really, is a globalized Venmo system, right? And so basically it's free to pay any person in the world, not just restricted to the United States, right? Because we're kind of privileged when it comes to that sort of that particular use case. But then, you know, free cross-border payments that settle in less than 2 seconds, right? Which is awesome. But it's not the core value of our app. It's just more of if we took Zelle or whatever it is, Zelle and Venmo, and put it on chain. And so when it came to that, then social feed, I was like, no, absolutely not, right? Like I think that there's a good amount of, whether it's like public transparency when it comes to the ledger as itself, but I don't think we should be making it easy for people to just like dig through everyone else's finances or see what everyone's, you know, sending money to. And so, you know, again, fine line to walk when it comes to balancing the idea of finance, which has been traditionally something private, versus the socialization of it, and how we actually enable the socialization of it, which I think, as you mentioned, is a good way to do it, is through community or alpha or investing together, right? Like, it's like, okay, this is our funds that we invest together. It's separate from what I do for my like retirement account.
Yeah, I think, well, what I was mainly talking about is, I guess when you take something like the subreddit, like Wall Street Bets,
Mm-hmm.
even Telegram groups, if you think about the communications that are happening there, identity is a massively important thing. And you even talked about how waiting for your beta launch, you have a wait list, and you specifically said IP verified. What was the term you used?
IP verified non-fraudulent users.
Yes. So you know, is that okay? So is that KYC? Is that like a KYC or AML thing?
No.
That,
No. That would be too much. Definitely not good for a wait list, right? Because that's like, no one's just giving out their personal information in order to be on a wait list. Basically, it collects emails, and then it has a series of checks, right? Basically, it checks IP. If it's a bunch of IPs that come around from the same place, or then it gets marked as, we just have some checks in the background to make sure that like we are individually separating who people are from like massive airdrop farmers, essentially. And certain emails are known to be fraudulent. They're on certain lists. And so it's just a matter of like filtering out bad players, filtering out people who are using fake emails, right? Or emails that have spun up very quickly. You know, there are certain services that do that. And so we just basically filter down, because if we didn't do that, our wait list would be over 160,000 people. Which is like, great, you know, it's like vanity metrics, but it's not real. It's, you know, like people who buy their followers on X, it's like, you can have 250,000 followers, but if it's not real, like, you're just hurting yourself, in my opinion, to understand your own growth metrics. Although other people, I guess, to some degree, I don't know. I think some people probably instills faith in, and then others are just, okay, this is obviously just botted. Like, how did you get this many followers? Like, okay, I personally trust companies less when it's very quick to see if someone's botted their followers.
yeah, it's a when you're dealing with attention arbitrage or your brand or your reputation, folks make these bets around artificially inflating and making themselves look better. And it might help them get ahead in the short term, and it might even pay off. Who knows? But it's sort of the fact that innately we have these markers in our mind that help us indicate whether something is of value or something that we're looking at is of value. And obviously there are marketers or entrepreneurs or just people in general that try to shape those perceptions, those indicators, very intentionally and in a positive way, where it is, you know, disingenuous, potentially even fraudulent. And so I think that's a really interesting note around communications. And it's a very gray area. You know, it's almost like it's like sort of companies that they will invest all their money in a Super Bowl ad, or, you know, an airplane that, you know, draws something in the sky over the beach or something like that. It's like, that looks, there's a great Sun Tzu line, The Art of War, where it's like, when you're small, look big, and when you're big, look small. And so, and so, and so you have to kind of be wary. And it kind of brings me back to some other, this is great talking about Web3 and sort of communications, because as the internet's moving from a place where content is sort of fungible content, things that can be duplicated or low value, sort of wild, wild west, to a place that has value, where literally there is cryptocurrency that is internet native. The bits are meaningfully worth something. Everything around identity, around communications are incredibly important. And so things like verifying users are important, because it means that the communications you receive from those users have more value, because they have to be backed by the verified user. And so really, really interesting ideas around communication. So maybe changing topics here. So how did you come up with this vision of launching Pistachio? And in particular, how did you tell people about it and get people on board?
Yeah. And so, okay, so two parts. The original vision, I think, was inspired by like almost an off the cuff. I still remember this. I was working in an office in Brooklyn for a company called Block Apps where we worked. We basically sold enterprise grade Ethereum. And so, you know, more like B2B business. And I was reflecting on, there's a company called Nexo. All right. It's like a custodial bank, essentially, like a custodial crypto neobank. That was yield generating and all these things. And so I was like, why doesn't someone build like a non-custodial version of this, right? And a big reason was that the technology wasn't ready. The infrastructure was very much sort of like lacking, right? And which has, there's been a lot of investment in that sector over the last 4 or 5 years or so, which is what made it possible to build what we have. And so I remember just like walking in one day, just like really wanting to I was inspired. I'm like, I want to build a better wallet. I've always onboarded a lot of friends, a lot of people to crypto with the vision. And it was hard to get people in because I would like watch them while they onboarded, right? Like I met one guy was like, yeah, finally, like, okay, I'll do it, you know, whatever. I'm like, yes. And he downloaded MetaMask and he's going through it, you know, 2-3 steps in. And then he's like, oh, okay, take out a pen and paper and write down these 12 words. And he's like, I'll do this later, you know? And he never finished onboarding, of course. I'm like, okay, that is you know, a significant pain point. It's like, okay, if I lose my 12th seed word phrase here, I lose access to all of my money forever. Like what? That's absurd. It is tough to onboard. It's like, okay, I understand some people do love that self-custody aspect of it. I mean, it's why a lot of what we do is, you know, we do something, I guess it's more non-custodial as opposed to pure self-custodial, and happy to dive directly into that. But the idea that just there's certain pain points that had to be smoothed over, right? And about 2 years ago, we did a hackathon with some friends, and it was we created a Web3 WeChat, essentially, just like a few, like hacked something together. It was really just a front end at that point, right? Because you can't really do too much back end integration. And it spawned this idea of, okay, I kind of want to do this, right? And they didn't want to work on it any further, but I still sort of wanted to, and I'm not a dev, right? So I had to figure out how can I bring this to life, and I was still looking for a company I wanted to build. And my friend told me that I was living in Mexico City at the time, like, you're really passionate about this other idea. Why don't you build it out? I'm like, how? I'm like, I'm not a dev, man. It's going to take me too long to be able to learn how to do this. He's like, yeah, but you can do like the front end, right? You can design. You have like a good eye for these things. I'm like, okay, yeah, you know what? Why not? And so I taught myself UX UI design, taught myself Figma, built a front end, and then just designed every day, right? Just kept building and building and building this front end. The first, got some feedback on the first version, which was a bit more social actually, and got torn apart, and then okay, like I tore it up and reiterated the whole thing into something different, into what became it's still not, it was still like this, that was like iteration 2, and we're on like iteration 4 or 5 of the UI at this point. But like, so that was enough to basically create the vision of, okay, this is a much easier wallet to use, right? And I sold it to, or I didn't sell it, I sold the vision to my CTO, my now CTO, who at the time was doing a lot of freelance work, and he's a superstar, man. He's like the fabled 100x developer. He's the top 3% developer in all of GitHub in terms of like raw output, like just very, very competent guy. And we used to work at the same company. We worked for like a boutique NFT marketplace for, I worked there for like less than a year, but I left for private reasons. But basically I was friends with a lot of the people there, right? And one of the product managers told me like, oh man, I wish someone would hire Kyle. He's like the fastest developer I know. And I'm like, oh, okay. Let me
duly noted. Yeah.
Right? So I sent him a message. We hopped on a call, sold him the vision, just told him about what he wanted to do. And he was like, yeah, this is awesome. Like, let's do it. Right. And so we've been building ever since. That was it. That was in April 2023 where I sold the vision to him. And then he came on full time starting, I think, that summer. So we've been building full time for about a year and a half now.
So who else have you had to, who else is sort of instrumental in getting to where you are now? Do you have advisors? Do you have investors? Tell me about pitching them. What was involved, if you have a few people that are instrumental to your team right now?
Yeah, because our team is just me and Kyle, but we have a few really great advisors and a few really great angels, right? And this was sort of in the question before that I didn't answer of, getting other people onto the vision. And it's really just a matter of iteration, right? I've pitched the Pistachio, 10,000 different ways from Sunday. It's a matter of, I say a narrative and then I say it a few times and I see what sticks. When I tell people, I see where are they intrigued, where are their eyes glazing over, are they engaged, are they not engaged, what catches their attention, where do they ask more questions about? And then I tailor the narrative over and over and over and over and over again until I start to get that enthusiasm all the time, right? And like, okay, I see how this is useful. I love this. Okay, like, okay, now we have an app and I can actually, it's no longer me selling my vision. It went from me selling my vision to then me selling, the website, and now I can sell the product. And it's like, because now my vision becomes more and more tangible over time, which makes it much easier to sell, to be honest, because in the beginning it was just me painting these pictures. And so, to do this, we ended up getting a few great advisors on board. One of my advisors, Alani Couillet, has been with us now for about a year, a little over a year. And he's, he has had multiple 7-figure exits, building his own B2B companies. And so he comes on as our business advisor, essentially, make sure that no one's taking advantage of us when it comes to equity, make sure that, that a lot of first-time founders get caught up in that and giving equity out to the wrong people, and especially when it comes to like the terms of the equity, and if any VCs are more predatory in their terms. And so he's in our corner to basically help us scale, help us understand operational spend better, although I think I'm very strong with that already. And then helping us, make sure we don't hit any pitfalls. We brought on a new advisor recently, who's the former head of data at Polychain Capital, a tier 1 VC in crypto. And he's going to be designing our tokenomics and our incentive ecosystem, which is going to be amazing. Great quant mind there, understanding more about the idea of incentivization through regenerative positive sum behavior, as opposed to arbitrary behavior that involves like retroactive airdrops, which has kind of been the traditional methodology in crypto. And then finally, we have a friend of mine who's just a freaking genius, right? Who he worked for Magnetar Capital for 7 years, $17 billion hedge fund. And basically he's an expert in structured finance and risk mitigation, right? And so he comes in to help us in the future. We're going to develop our own proprietary financial instruments and things with smart contracts and vaults. And so he's going to help us basically bring more, hedge fund strategies to on-chain. We are looking at a fourth advisor a technical advisor, which would be a great boon, but we'll get to that. My angel investors are awesome. We have a few really heavy hard hitters. Probably the most notable is the head of DeFi at Base. He's a big believer in what we do. We definitely tailor some of our vaults to Base because of that. And for anyone not familiar, Base is a layer 2 network on Ethereum. It basically just does transaction bundling to lower the transaction fees, and then uses security as uses Ethereum as its security layer. And among a few others, we have like the ex-head of finance at 0x. We have the founder of Adicia, which is an accelerator program. We have the founder of Azos, which is a sustainability stablecoin. And so just a great group who all believe in what we're doing and believe in me and Kyle, especially, right, as founders to build this thing and make it awesome.
Yeah, I think sounds like a classic technical team. Definitely sounds like you've got some folks who are deeply ingrained into things like tokenomics, the way that these tools are built, and being able to at least probably try, thoughtfully try a new approach or an improved approach on top of what they're waking up and seeing every single day. That's great. In terms of, so probably thinking about customers, but not just customers on the wait list, but even just as you're talking to people about, and you said even not self-custody, non-custodial. So I know a little bit about, what am I trying to say here? So technical onboarding creates a distrust in the world of Web3. There's also a Wild Westness in the world of Web3 because of highly publicized hacks, FUD, things that aren't even hacks, but more just social engineering experiments with the average investor holding the bag, just a general lack of success with 5,000 different digital assets, not really, pumping and dumping. This is just par for the course. I think in a very nascent industry doing some very innovative work. I remember hearing the CEO of what was it, Shapeshift, and he said in the 60s and 70s, folks were in their garage working on computers in Silicon Valley. Well, now folks are in their garage creating monetary systems, and they're all not going to, 99% are not going to work, but 1% is going to work, and it's going to be magic, basically.
Yeah. Eric Voorhees, he's a top-notch mind in crypto for sure.
Yeah. How do you let's talk about your trust machine here. How do you get people, how do you overcome this massive challenge of getting people to trust you with what you're building, trust ultimately them to use and trust your software and your business? Because this is a giant hurdle. I'm trying to build something for a client right now that basically it's without giving away too much, it's like it's an AI agent that deals with HR information that's highly confidential. And the actual technical requirements are not that challenging to be able to host the data, keep it secure, but the complicated sale of getting someone to buy it and even just to trust it because of just leaks, potential for leaks, and even you being a business-sided person which means you have to give your CTO benefit of the doubt, or whoever you're working with, injecting code, backdoors, even just omissions or insecurity. I'm the exact same boat. I always said to the devs working in crypto, I'm like, I've read a lot of books on ancient Roman history, and so I can kind of explain what it's like over there. But if I were to teleport there, I wouldn't last a day. It's like, I know. So, even just related to typical web applications, I had to learn about that on top of blockchain infrastructure. So those are quite a few different things, but let's just bring it back. So how do you get people to trust you with what you're building? What are some behaviors you do?
Yeah, takes time. Time is one of the biggest factors, and everything has to be approached differently. It depends on what we're selling. One element is I've been in the industry now for a very long time, right? I've been in the industry for 9 years, and I've never scammed anyone. I've never rugged anyone. I have a few guiding principles, which I basically guide my life on a certain series of principles as opposed to goals, right? I kind of reoriented a few years ago around that. And two of the principles I revolve my life around are honesty and integrity. And so when it comes to that, the third one being loyalty, but it's not necessarily privy to this type particular conversation. So then those two, it's basically like I demonstrate who I am every day when I show up, that I've been building for a very long time. People know me. And I think that is a level of social credibility, which adds in a first layer, right? But there's multiple layers here. It's not just like me as a founder that you have to trust. I trust Kyle wholeheartedly as my CTO. He embodies what I embody as well in terms of our values and building something safe. And so that involves, every decision that we make, that we frequently talk about, that he always, brings it back to security. It's very evident that he cares about end user privacy and security. And so those types of conversations aren't in the public though, obviously, right? So how do we get others to then buy into the vision? And so it's a matter of like the tech that we use and the way we set up our technology, right? So for example, with like when it comes to key management, the key is stored to like the hardware enclave of your phone, right? And that ensures that it can't be hacked, can't be taken out. Only you get access to this key. Only you can access your funds. Someone asked me the other day, why is non-custody important? And it's important because you look at custodial solutions like FTX that stole everyone's funds, right? And ruined, billions of dollars. It was what caused the crash 3-4 years ago now. And so our biggest thing is, okay, well, because we're non-custodial, we just can't do that. Like it's literally impossible for us to take the funds out of your wallet, right? It's a matter of, then it becomes a matter of recovery, right? Because if you lose your seed phrase, which is stored to your phone, how do you get access to it, right? And then what we do is we take the key, we shard it, meaning we split it into 2 separate halves, which is not usable unless it's together, right? So each individual half is useless alone, and then we encrypt each half. And then half gets saved to your cloud, the other half gets saved to our servers, which are also encrypted. And so also, iCloud or whatever cloud, Google Cloud are both encrypted as well. And so they would need to like break into that encryption, or they would need to like break in using your password. They would need to get that half of the key. They would have to break the encryption on that. And then they would have half of the key, which is useless unless they go to the other half and do the same thing. Even if they happen to do both of those things, they would need access to your sign-in, which is either your email or your SMS. And then within getting that sign-in as well, they would have to get the one-time password, prove themselves finally with the biometric that you use when you sign on, in addition to these keys, right? So if you're you, it's really easy to prove all of these things because you're like signed in most of these. You're signed into most of these. You have access to your email. You get the one-time password. It takes less than a minute really to sign up. But if you're not you, it's pretty much impossible to hack because you would have to do pretty much all of these things and all these things at the same time. It would be very comprehensive attack, right? And so we actually don't explain security much in our marketing. And the reason for that is most people don't care, right? Security is one of those things that you don't care until you need it. Like once it happens, it's like, okay, well, this is like the FTX thing, right? And so we explain how we do it. Like you can basically dive deeper into our security if you're a security aficionado, right? Like you want to learn more about it. We do have like some written content on there, and then we're going to produce more written content as well over time, just to like instill faith in there. But at the end of the day, it's about like longevity in the market, right? Like any user that I've spoken to regarding this, it's more so they're not willing, like they're willing to put in 50 grand, but not at once. It's more like, yeah, I'm willing to put in $500 or $1,000 and see how it is and let it sit there. And in that case, you have to enable certain user interactions, right? So it's easy money in, easy money out. And so that's, if I put $500 in, do I need to jump through a lot of hoops to get that $500 out? Or can I just take it out right away? Like, yeah, of course you can take it out right away. It's your money. We don't lock up your money in any way. You can always take it off our platform. No big deal, right? And so that's kind of one big, I think, thing that instills faith as well, is just, the ability to take out money for free without any like hiccups or roadblocks or whatever it is. And then it's, so we have vaults, for example. We have a vault that yields like 7.4% right now. And so that's very attractive, right? 7.5%. It's like, okay, let me put $1,000 in there and let's see how it goes. You could receive a notification every month that you've earned this, you've earned this, you've earned this, right? And so we're reinforcing behavior to encourage user retention with a simplified notification system where most apps just blast your face with notifications all day long, right? Boom, 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 boom. I hate that. Fucking hate that as a user. And so I'm not going to do that to my users because I hate it. And so, I'm going to provide you with meaningful notifications every now and then, like, hey, sign up for our credit card. We have a new promotion going on. Or once a month on the first of every month, hey, you've earned $100 because of the amount of money that you have, because of the money that you have locked up. And so that creates then trust, because it's like, oh, they're telling me, and it's instant withdrawals, right? It's not like there's no lockup periods either. And so if I want to take out, if I put 10 grand in there and I'm receiving my monthly notification of, $100 that I'm earning, it's like, okay, cool. But I want to take it out because I want to use it on my house. Okay, withdraw, instant, without gas, cool. Okay, and move it to my bank account, done, right? And so I think that sort of behavior will instill trust over time. And so one final thing that we're planning on doing there is that, so our app isn't really hackable because of the way we've set up our infrastructure, right? There's a lot of attack vectors in crypto that make wallets weak, whether it's like draining, right? Connecting to malicious websites and giving them the permission to basically steal all the funds from your wallet. And so we're a walled garden. I don't allow that at all. Like can't get drained if you can't connect, so something like that. And so we bring all the use cases to the user that they would need. And it's essentially a vault as opposed to their Web3 wallet where you can connect to the Wild West of crypto. It's like, no. We only let you connect to curated, hardened, mature systems, right? That are audited, that your money will be safe. And so then the really only attack vector comes from things that are not in our ecosystem, right? Like the people that we're curating to bring in, such as like an investment vault. And so let's say, for example, there's an investment vault and there's a hack. Even if it's audited, there's always like a very small chance that funds get drained, right? And so because this is the one weakness, we're looking into providing insurance for our users, but like specifically for the vaults, right? Or maybe for their overall portfolio if we can get a good enough deal. But the idea is to essentially create a sort of like Web3 non-custodial alternative neobank that does come with obviously not FDIC insurance, but some sort of equivalent insurance that does help them. That again inspires faith and okay, I can put money in this vault because God forbid something happens that I'm covered.
There's I remember early days listening to podcasts. This would have been almost 20 years ago now, but I just remember distinctly listening to an entrepreneurial thought leaders podcast. Who's the founder of Pandora Radio, and he his first business was trying to create a cybersecurity startup. And I remember him saying, he's like, this is a terrible industry to be in, because if they're paying you and nothing happens, they'll think they're paying you too much. And if something happens, then obviously you're not doing your job. So it reminds me of CrowdStrike and basically the spike in all these cybersecurity companies, because you have to make it acute. It's like going to the gym or investing for your retirement, security. And it kind of makes there are challenges with businesses or with innovations that need to cross a chasm, that go from an early adopter that's willing to try the new thing to folks who are in a rush, that just want to use something, that just want the value, just need the value proposition. They're not using their leisure time, or they're not innately interested in discovering new things, discovering the future, discovering a different way. And so
Pistachio is perfect for those people.
What's that?
Pistachio is perfect for those
Yes.
people. I did a little education project at one point when, like, an NFT community, and I just realized people don't really care to learn. Like, some people, it piques people's interest at some point, but when it comes to crypto, people don't want to have to learn about seed phrases and gas and token approvals and all the deep stuff that kind of comes along with, like, consensus models, or what is a consensus layer, what's an execution layer. No, they just want it to benefit them, and they want it to work, right? And in this case, it's okay. You can make money, you can spend money, you can send money to other people around the world for free, and you can pay your bills, And so it's like, okay, that is tangibly useful to me, and speaks to people more than having to educate them, whether it's educating them on how the tech works or on security. And so you kind of just have to do it for them, right? You abstract away everything that is involved with that, and you just make it work.
Yeah, it's like the other phrase. It's about sales, but one of my favorite phrases is, people like to buy stuff they don't like being sold to. And so if you think about every point of friction in a user experience or in a process that is relatively new, that is either a nice to have or a new behavior, and it's a piece of friction, and you're trying to back up your seed phrase, back up this, be careful of your security, watch out for your online passwords, et cetera, et cetera. That is it's like a parental, told you so, or you should, clean up your room or something like that. You need you almost need like a Duolingo. You need a funny passive aggressive, like, you haven't signed in for a week, or tidy your, mind your passwords or something.
We do have sort of this pistachio mascot that we've created, who's he's jacked, right? And because the idea is he protects your nut, and so it's like, dude, don't, make sure you're safe. Although luckily we don't have to worry about backing up your seeds, because you back up your seed with the moment you sign in on your onboarding, to make it easy, right? Because I think the most common UX of people getting into crypto is that they sign up for some sort of centralized exchange, Coinbase, Kraken, Bitso. They buy there, and then especially when it goes up, like, this is like a lot of money. I'd like to have this into my own custody, and that's generally when you get a ledger. Is when they get the MetaMask, or they get the past UX, and because the UX hurdle to those self custody options was much higher, but it wasn't until you actually had something at risk that it was painful enough to go through. And luckily now the UX is much better for crypto wallets, especially non-custodial wallets, where you don't actually have to go through the painful stuff. You can just directly create it, spin it up, and get your crypto on there. You're on mute.
There are some dumb things that I've done in terms of not doing the bridge for the main net of a token or something like that, and it just being lost a year later down the road. And it's not a meaningful amount, but I mean, it still counts, right? And so I don't think it's even that folks don't want to do it. It's that some folks want to do it. They just don't want to necessarily do it all the time, right? Like it's an occasional thing. So really great chat. What we talked about today included getting folks on board for your startup through being involved in the industry for a long time. I really like the idea of living by principles rather than objectives or goals. That's super freeing. That's very mindful. I love that. I also think that learning about educating folks, being competitive, finding a new way to differentiate yourself, especially in industries that are a little nascent, a little bit early adopter, and preparing for growth for that next leg of users. Is there anything you want to plug or anything that stood out today that you want to add before we go?
Yeah, I'll just say, please go sign up for the waitlist. You know, our website is www.pistachio.fi, F-I, like finance. Go there, sign up for the waitlist. Our iOS app will be available in a matter of weeks, maybe even sooner. After this, I gotta knock something out that we're into the next stage. Android should be out in a few weeks after that. That's just giving us a little bit of a headache. If there's any really sick React Native engineers out there, definitely give me a holler, especially if you're located in Mexico City. But yeah, otherwise, you know, look forward to what we have. We iterate a lot, and we're just, even if the initial version is still kind of seems basic, it's a powerhouse, and we're gonna keep adding to it over time.
Really appreciate it, Brian. Thanks a lot. Thanks for being a part of the Conveyor podcast.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for having me on.